Saints Row jumped the shark long ago, with ever-escalating self-parody and wacky humour only equalled by the success of each release. Now we have the tried and true reboot cycle kicking in. With toned-down corn, they said. Okay, maybe not. Volition have always been known for pushing technology, beating the revolutionary Quake to a full 3D engine in Descent, the dynamic destruction mechanics of Red Faction, and the open-world physics-driven chaos of the Saints Row series. In this reboot, technology has remained a core pillar for which they build upon. Using their own proprietary in-house and improved engine, they have added the big-ticket item for this generation: ray tracing. Ray-traced ambient occlusion to be precise, but more on that later. The current generation console versions offer the largest mode set I think I have seen in a console title to date. We are looking at the PlayStation 5, the Series X and S, the PC and the Xbox One X to give you a flavour of last generation, which it also ships on. So let's hit those pesky pixel counts first. Series X and PlayStation 5 all have fixed modes, with dual 1080p modes, then dual 1440p modes, followed by a single 4K mode. That's full 3840 by 2160. No dynamic scaling appears to be in use in any of them, but it cannot be ruled out. But due to the fact there's so many modes, it kind of points to the fact that they don't have a DRS solution in the engine as yet. Meanwhile, you can pick your preference: more pixels, more performance, or better quality pixels. The Series S makes do with a single 1080p mode, as does the Xbox One X, albeit at a higher resolution of 2560 by 1440. Surprisingly, they both target the same 60 FPS levels, with differing success on achieving that. Something true of all console modes here. Now, neither of them offers any ray-traced effects, leaving Series S owners missing most features its bigger brother offers. Although a lower resolution than its older brother, this is the best choice for the mini Xbox machine, with the relatively noisy and post-processed TAA image not being severely affected by that resolution delta, although it can be noticed. PC will come down to your relevant specifications and selection of engine configuration options, along with dual APIs DX11 and DX12, which is required for ray tracing. We can push these options to the maximum and see how much the PC can scale. Obviously, the options here are very good. The menu system allows you to tweak many elements of the engine, including multiple modes of those ray tracing features, and you can actually have a transparent menu, which is great and becoming more common in this space, which means you can see the features change and the impact they have on performance right from the menu screen itself, which makes tweaking for your own personal preference much easier.
Jesus Christ!
You're not gonna last.
Your pep talks need some work.
This is for you. Performance bonus.
The ray-traced ambient occlusion operates within screen space and is only available in the 1080 and 1440p modes on the PlayStation 5 and Series X. This is an element of global illumination in that it emulates the self-occlusion or shadowing of recessed areas, under cars, within doorways, or even on bodies as they contact walls, floors, or even themselves. The ray trace quality here does add a good deal of depth and grounding within the game's objects. It increases the pixel coverage and resolution of the effect as you scale up from 1080 to 1440p. However, the setting itself drops from the PC Ultra setting when at 1080p to close to the PC's high setting when at 1440. A minor change but noted in my comparisons, as is sometimes the PS5 and Series X having effects turned on differently in the higher modes, causing some strange dips in performance. You can see around 10% sometimes on PS5 in that 1440p mode because it seems to have additional elements on hair. The 4K mode does offer the best image quality and clarity of the lot, but sadly with no ray tracing present, which is true on both consoles, and it also drops some other effects such as ambient occlusion, which then go down to the HBAO low setting, which is the same as the Series S and the Xbox One X. You can still run this on the PC at 4K resolutions if you have the GPU hardware, and from testing all the modes across PS5 and Series X, we have identical outputs and visual parity across all 5 modes. The only exception is those bugs, which I assume they are, when certain effects are left on in certain modes on PS5. Now this includes the screen space HBAO when ray tracing is disabled. SSR is used for reflections, which hit the best the PC offers at 1080p and pretty much identical at the high levels, although there isn't much of a difference here, even going from the highest setting to medium, only costing around 4% here on my RX 6800. In fact, the 1080 Ultra mode on consoles does appear to be identical to the PC's best, aside shadows, which although still noisy at times, even on the best the PC offers in Ultra, they can be a little cleaner and less dithered at those higher resolutions. The lack of RT reflections does mean that the relatively dithered and stochastic reflection that SSR offers, alongside low quality cube maps in certain places, can again cause some artifacts within the game's image, something which is present in the game's visual makeup no matter the platform. Stippled effects on hair, stubble, reflections mixed with the very strong TAA pass the engine uses gives heavy ghosting on all of these areas as things move and blend into each other. Tyres trail on the ground, heads leave strong outlines, and even shadows can band across bodies, cars or other geometry. It's far from terrible and only present in certain scenarios, but it must be noted that the IQ can vary from excellent to okay throughout play. The higher resolution set in PC offers do help, but never fully resolve these, and as such the elements can look worse at 1080p due to that relationship of the target output buffer. The Series S runs many of these effects lower than the bigger consoles, which is evidenced in the side-by-side comparisons. However, the nips and tucks help it manage a close mirror of those consoles with significantly less power and memory, something which likely forms part of the reason it does not offer any ray-traced effects. Aside the pixel reductions, the RT disablement and small shift in SSR detail, AO, volumetrics, alpha, etc., then all the other aspects remain a match. This includes the improved character models that you can design and tweak, the physically based materials that, although not top tier, are improved and more nuanced and reactive than previous titles, from car body reflections, hair fins, skin tones, water surfaces, metals and blood, something you will see a great deal of here. Although no destruction or dismemberment, it still delivers on the crazy with a capital K. So we have a great deal of modes to cover here, and in an odd choice, all of these modes are capped at 16 milliseconds or 60 FPS. For Series X and PlayStation 5, both 1080p modes do a decent job of hitting that 60 FPS target. Both can dip below it, but the max FPS mode is as close to 60 FPS to never really stand out, and VRR can be enabled if so desired. The ultra quality mode can dip into the high 40s on both, with it needing VRR to hide those dips. It's far from bad, but certainly not locked, and due to the size and scale of these types of games, this could be worse in certain outdoor scenarios. The main difference between these two modes though is that max quality offers higher LOD or foliage, which uses the adaptive setting the PC offers, and higher sample motion blur, enhanced Fresnel lighting, and the ambient occlusion ray tracing shade. By no means a drastic visual increase, but once sampled and compared, the reduction in shade, the shift in material quality and more noise does stand out. Sadly, the dithered stochastic pixel sample level it uses that is lower than the target output means you gain a much higher pixel budget for this effect as you go up to 1440p, although it can come at the cost of performance. At 1440p, the high FPS mode is as close to the 1080 Ultra mode level of performance that it's probably about a match, with again both machines being almost identical on the points and levels of dips below 60. This is my preferred mode as it still offers a decent level of visual quality with reductions on visual settings present but not drastic. The compromise here makes it the best balance of quality, clarity and performance, with the second 1440p mode still hitting a possible 60 FPS level, but it can dip into the 30s for prolonged areas on both consoles, meaning VRR is of no use here most of the time, and it feels like a 30 FPS title even if it's not, especially on long open areas as you race through the countryside or blow stuff up. I would suggest to the team that a 30 FPS option being added to the menu that could be toggled on and off for modes would help and thus give players even more choice on what is an already superb level of options for a console title, and I do applaud the team here of having so many options to choose from.
So I made them watch while I broke their dad's... Ah, shit.
Walk away, or the phrase dead-end job gets literal.
I don't have much. We don't want you.
Speed up.
Try to hit their whole side, not just the bumper. We Need speed for a good sideswipe.
Me, I think.
Hey, we have to rendezvous with Bravo team or we're dead.
Finally, that 4K mode, which is, believe it or not, still 60 FPS as a target, never really gets out of the 30s. It can get to the low 40s in very brief moments, but as such, you would think this is a 30 FPS mode most of the time. And the results show that here, with a game that is heavily GPU bound, with even further cutbacks on the visual levels, such as the ambient occlusion cut back to low, reductions in foliage and other areas. But ultimately, it's a mode that runs approximately 22% slower on both consoles than that 1440p high quality mode, but over twice the resolution. Not a surprise, and something we will see on the PC tests.
I don't have much.
We don't want your money, just his. Get out of here.
You done
Not going fast enough to do any damage.
You'll do more damage the faster you go.
I'm so good I surprised myself. Or the phrase dead-end job gets literal.
I don't have much.
We don't want your money, just his.
Guys, I got cops on my ass. Nina, don't wait for me. I gotta lose these guys.
Try sideswiping them. It always works for me. Just let them get alongside you, and then bam, send them into a ditch.
The Series S does have that single 1080p mode, and sadly performance is worse than both the Series X and PlayStation 5 in the 1440 high quality mode, with it never hitting 60 FPS in my tested sections and often being in or around the 30s. Certainly enough for me to suggest that a 30 FPS cap here would also be a good option, or reducing the resolution to 900p could make significant boost to this console's performance level, as it's clearly GPU bound on this machine. Again, VRR can help, but it will not resolve the lower bounds it can hit often, meaning you are left with a close visual match to the bigger consoles, but a clear divide in FPS.
I don't have much.
We don't want your money, just his. Get out of here.
You done.
Where's the safe?
If you're lucky, the cops will get to you before my people.
Nice left.
Been practicing.
Shit. Guys, I got cops on my ass. Nina, don't wait for me. I gotta lose these guys.
Try sideswiping them. It always works for me.
The Xbox One X backs this up with a title that shows the engine still needs some work to reduce the cost of certain effects. Pixel fill rate and bandwidth looking to be the core areas of demand. As such, the 1440p output means we can see frame rates dip under the 30 FPS target it offers. Again, not that frequent to annoy, but fast travel across country can see things popping in very close to the camera. It does not look that far removed from the best on PC again from a visual perspective, although visually it's very close to the Series S, but has a higher resolution, but almost identical visual settings aside the foliage, which isn't as high as it is on Series S. But expect this to be the best last-gen version of the lot, due to the Xbox One X being the most capable console from that generation.
So I made them watch while I broke their dad's... Ah, shit.
Walk away, or the phrase dead-end job gets literal.
I don't have much.
We don't want your money, just his. Get out of here.
Shit. Guys, I got cops on my ass. Nina, don't wait for me. I gotta lose these guys.
Try sideswiping them. It always works for me. Just let them get alongside you, and then bam, send them into a ditch.
With the PC set to native 4K max settings, even on the 3600X and RX 6800, we see this current build is very demanding on PC and console alike. As such, the performance level drops far below the 60 FPS dream and explains why we see the levels we have on consoles between all the modes. It's rarely CPU bound here, with it fully being GPU bound even at lower resolutions on this particular machine. The CPU is more than enough to deliver way over 60 FPS if the GPU could have it, or you lower the settings. As such, the 1440p maximum is my recommendation for this level of GPU based on the launch day build at least, and 1080p maximum for mid-range level GPUs such as the 6700 or the 2070 down. If you cut back to the levels of the console, then 1440p with 60 FPS targets are also possible. Predominantly cutting down on the shadow resolution from ultra to high, cutting down on some of the foliage areas, and also cutting out that ray tracing ambient occlusion. What the PC Maximum offers is the cleanest visual package of the lot. Some of the heavy dithering on shadows and noisy pixels we can get in strong contrasted areas are much more stable and at times fully resolved. The TAA passes are still heavy, and colour banding, shadow acne and other visual blemishes do remain, some of them clearly rendering bugs to resolve. The demands here mean that to get close to a 4K 60 maximum, you would likely need a 3090 level GPU, and that is still not a guarantee. That said, the configuration options here allow this title to scale brilliantly across a broad range of PC specifications, and I'm sure it will improve with later patches from the team.
Guys, I got cops on my ass. Nina, don't wait for me. I gotta lose these guys.
Try sideswiping them. It always works for me. Just let them get...
Saints Row has been away for a while, and this reboot still managed to feel like a new entry in this established series, but familiar at the same time. It offers significant technical improvements in key areas, but loading is one area that is a letdown, with no real use of the SSDs or compression I/O elements of the new consoles, meaning loading can take 30 seconds plus, which is far from slow, but in this modern age already feels lacking, with the PC being the fastest here of the lot with all that work on the CPU, and the PS5 being the slowest. The ray tracing can improve both materials and construction of scenes, with it being a good choice to add into this improved engine. That said, the impact to performance even on higher end GPUs may not be worth the cost, around 22% going from off to ultra, and the higher the resolution the more expensive it becomes. Aside the material, animation and effects suite the game offers, it cannot hide the skeleton of the old game that lies beneath. From Havoc physics integration, ragdoll deaths to robotic AI, short shadow cascade draw, heavy pop-in across all formats even on PC's maximum, and a general noisy image quality from a demanding engine, means that many players may be expecting more from this title than their machines will deliver, at least at launch.
We don't just make a profit, we make the world a better place.
And remember, if you like these deep dives into performance, game technology, animation engines, and all things computer related, then keep it IGN Performance Reviews, and I'll drop back soon for my next review.
What the f?
Thanks for the ride. I'll see you around.